welcome to Northern Lights. I'm Dwain.
I'm Mark, and this time we'll be talking about UFC 2021, a year in review. But instead of going through each event by event, I thought that'd be pretty boring. Dwain, we sent each other a list last week saying, what do you think is the best, worst, etc., etc. And we're going to go through that and just be able to talk about it. So, I mean, why wasting time? So we'll just jump straight in. So the first one I've got on my list, Dwain, is what do you think was the best women's fight?
Well, for me, easily the best women's fight was Rose versus Zhang Weili 2. I think there just hasn't been a fight quite like that in the women's division, especially after their first fight as well. And this year, anyway, I think it's pretty much the same. What about you?
I actually agreed with you on that. I've never wanted this list just to be a complete, just me and you having a mutual agreement. Hey, that's boring. But in the sense of, yeah, because it had the backstory of, in the first fight, Rose knocked her out. She's the only two-time strawweight champion. So this one was going to be more, and it was on a stacked card as well, and it delivered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it had the rivalry. It had the fight itself was great. You thought Zhang was robbed.
I do think Zhang was robbed. I really do. I think, especially one judge gave it like all 5 rounds to Rose, which is just, to me, that's insane. I don't even know how you can do that. She knocked her down in one of the rounds. How can you knock someone down and lose the round? That makes no sense. But yeah, I think after their first fight, when Rose came out and knocked Zhang out in what was it, under 30 seconds? I don't remember.
No, it was just over that. I think it was just over a minute. I think
it was very, very quick first round finish, and I think Zhang just sort of got a bit caught out. She thought, she thought we were just doing that. We're trading back and forth, moving around each other. I don't think she was quite expecting it, and Rose, got a cracking kick and took her down. And Zhang went away and she trained, and she came back a completely different fighter. Because before she sort of ran into punches, got hit a lot, but she had the strength to sort of get on with it, so she could take some of the best shots and then keep going forward. Whereas this time, I think she was very tactical. She trained with Cejudo. Her wrestling was much better. Her groundwork was better. Her control was better. Overall, she was just a complete better fighter. And I felt Rose was pretty much the same as she's always been. She had good takedown, though. I think that's what ultimately won her the fight, probably. With that 5th round, holding her down for most of it. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, the second fight itself, it had a bit of everything, and I wasn't sure at the end. I was happy Rose won because I like her, but it was one of them. If it went either way, I could see it. Even if it was a draw, I'd have been okay. That's not too bad. But yeah, it definitely had the rivalry there. A little bit of competition sort of thing in there. It was the second fight, one that you actually get invested in as well. And I think it's great that we're now getting to a stage where this is happening. I know that it has been done before, but we're now coming into a stage where, because the pool's getting bigger for women fighters, there's more to be interested in. I remember before it was for a channel flicker. You was looking at just Rousey. Now you've got these different divisions and everything. You've got exciting things happening in all of them. Even if, say, to average Joes, like you might have just the champion and then a few contesters at the top. But still, that's more exciting than what it was, and it's only going to grow and get bigger. So I think it's a really good thing as well to have people on top. And then Rose cemented her name as 2-time strawweight champion. But now after the best women's fight, what do you think is the best male fight of the year?
Oh, I think it's difficult because I don't want to because it's all so close in my memory. I don't want to pick the most recent fights, and I'm picking a fight from the same card. But I think it's got to be Usman versus Covington 2. I think.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
It was just such an exciting fight.
That had it all as well, though. That was the same. It had the rivalry and the build-up and everything. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad shout at all. It's not. It's just so happens that they're both on the same card.
Yeah. I think it was just such an interesting fight because obviously Colby lost their first bout, got knocked out, even though he claims he didn't, but early stoppage, whatever. But this time he got dropped. Was it in the second round? And Usman was all over him. He was just first 2 rounds. He was just battering him. And I thought Covington's got nothing for him. And then all of a sudden he just switched it on. I think Covington doesn't quite have the knockout power that he needs to fight the way he fights. Like, I think if he had that little bit more strength, that little bit more knockout power, he could have done something. But he really brought it back. You know, he was taking control of the octagon. He was keeping Usman out of range. He was doing really well. But in the first 2 rounds, he kept like swinging so far out. It's like he was throwing his whole body into each punch and just going so far. I thought you're never going to hit him that way, and they left himself open and he got knocked down. A close fight, and I think definitely Usman 100% won. But on another night, maybe Colby could have won with some different judges, I think. You know, it was good overall though.
Yeah, that was a really good fight. Really good card altogether. And it's not just because it's recent that it sticks in our mind so much. It genuinely was just a really good card from start to finish.
Yeah.
Hence why my best male fight, is on the same card. It's Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler. Only 3 rounds, so it wasn't a championship. It was just one of them. You know when it gets announced, when the fight got announced, and you just think, oh, it gets announced, you got that could be really good. Yeah, but you've got that thing in your mind of it's either going to be really good or really shit.
Yeah, like an early knockout, yeah.
Yeah, or just, you know, they're going to be, you know, like Ngannou and Derek Lewis, when that got announced, and you go, this is going to be really good, and it was dog shit.
Yeah, completely.
Well, that's what I thought could happen here, but it didn't. It delivered on paper. It delivered in person. It was so good, and it had excitement both ways. So I think people sat like, I heard someone say that Gaethje absolutely pieced Chandler up, and you're like, yeah, he wouldn't, but he didn't piece him up.
And Chandler,
really good fight.
Yeah, Chandler rocked Gaethje a couple of times. It was really exciting. I felt like it kind of felt like Chandler threw away the fight. It felt like in the last round he just went, "Oh fuck it, just whack me," you know, and like he wanted to really entertain, like he wanted to become. I think a lot of UFC fighters, when they come to that sort of later portion of their career, they think, right, what am I going to do after this? I need to get famous and get big now. So for him, what's more important? The win, which is of course very important. But I think he knew he was losing anyway. So I thought, right, if I just go out, show how tough I am, I'll get loads of fans. People will really like me, and that seemed to be what happened. And people did really like him. And overall, I think it was just a great fight. You know, great back and forth between them both.
I don't understand. I've seen something online of people like hating on Chandler because, you know, he's lost his last 2. You know, it's the
2 killers.
People, yeah, these people. Thankfully, they aren't bosses or anything, or they aren't employers. As you know, like they go, oh well, you know, he's lost his last 2. Get rid of him. He's done his retirement. You're like, how easy do you give in? And you look at the fights that he's given us. He nearly beat Oliveira. He nearly beat Gaethje. You know, and you're like, he's so good in the division. The lightweight division is probably one of the most stacked ones.
Oh, easily.
He's part of the reason as well. Whoever is in there with, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great fight. Whoever is in there with. So I don't get the hate for these people that come in and they absolutely swing and they bring it. You know, I just don't understand it. But that was so that's the best male fight. And then coming on to best rivalry. Who you think? And I think I know your answer.
Well, I think you can't talk about UFC in 2021 without talking about Dustin and Conor. I think they've just had such an exciting rivalry. I think, I mean, it spans over a much longer time. You know, they've had 3 fights now. And they came out, and for their second fight, Conor came out very polite, very kind, very humble, and he seemed a different person. And then, you know, the rivalry
was the same Conor that was in the Cowboy fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah, and they offered him some money for his charity, and then the Twitter beef happened, you know, because Dustin. But that's how it started. That's how it started their rivalry. Now it's funny, isn't it, that social media is such a big aspect of the fight game now, like them calling each other out, you know, because what it was. Conor promised, like, I think was it 50,000, 100,000. He offered him some money for Dustin's charity, And he asked, "Where's it going?" And Dustin didn't tell him where it was, so he didn't give him any money. And he called him out on Twitter, and then Conor was fuming. He was so angry about it, and that kicked off their rivalry. You know.
Mm.
What do you think? What do you think? Best rivalry, the same or something different?
Well, that one was actually my pick as well, because I'm not a McGregor fan, as you know. I do really like Dustin, but you can't, with what went on, you can't really ignore it, can you? To be honest, because you know Dustin got his revenge. He got in battles out back in January, where he knocked Conor out, and then throughout the third fight, it came back. Look, I get that it's trying to sell and all that kind of stuff, but now Conor's guard has come down. We know that it's all a complete act, and it doesn't work to go back to this, like, you know, it was embarrassing trash talk, I thought, in the third fight leading up and stuff. It wasn't even Dustin is saying, I think he just wanted to show that he weren't getting in his head, but when he's saying you used to be so much better than that, you know, it's just not
100%.
It's not as witty. It's not as quick. It's not as funny. Maybe it's because he's not in his prime anymore, or he's coming off X amount of losses. You know, but you're just like, as in, you can't really take it that serious. To be honest, it's just a bit.
100%. And the only bit that felt serious to me was when he said, "I'm going to kill that man in the octagon," and I mean it. That felt quite real, actually. He did seem really upset. But yeah, I agree. I feel like, you know, because I'm a massive Conor fan, you know I am, but I think his promos this year, they're not, you know, he hasn't got that sort of Ric Flair about him anymore. You know, he's just sort of screaming angrily, and it's like
his conferences aren't must watch anymore.
No.
I don't think so.
No, I agree. Because before he was funny. Like, look when he did the press tour with Mayweather, he was hilarious on that. That was really funny. He's such a comedian, but he just sort of threw that away this year. And like, either be humble Conor or be funny Conor. You can't be anything else. You know, he's got to be one or the other. And
he knew that he needed to be back. If he could, if he was to come back in that third fight, counter that, and to say, yeah, fair enough. He knocked me out clean, and you know, and also I like that hot sauce that you gave me and all that. It'd be shit. Yeah. So you get what he's doing, but at the same time, it's like it's not as. I don't think it's as funny, and I thought it was a bit more embarrassing. But I agree, best rivalry. You can't ignore all that aside. You can't ignore that it's because it did. It took you through almost 6 months of the year. That rivalry, and it's probably still going on now because a lot of people still think it's unfinished because obviously it was an anticlimactic finish to the third fight. And to be honest, I hope there isn't a fourth fight because this could go on forever.
There will.
If Conor wins this next one, you go, well, what now then? So
yeah, that's the thing. I think, to be honest, of course, I think Dustin was piecing him up a bit. He was doing really well, and he may have got the win. But for me, as an end to a rivalry, I don't think that's a good ending. I think we don't know what happened. You know, it's not. And I don't want a fourth fight now. I think if they do a fourth fight, it needs to be at least a bare minimum of a year, if not 2 years, right near the end. But the trouble is, Conor's only got a couple of must have a couple of years left in his career, probably.
He's 32 now, isn't
he? Yeah.
It depends though, because I mean, like Colby was saying, he's earned a shit ton of money. It depends where his head's at. I can't speak for him. I'm not a fucking millionaire, you know what I mean? But as in, Dustin's still fighting because he's never had the belt, the actual belt. He's been interim, but so you know, you can't imagine the journey that Dustin has been on. Sorry, this year, from knocking Conor out to having the second fight. He's had the 2 money fights, and then he came so close to getting the belt again, and it was the same way as what he got defeated by last time.
Yeah, 100%. I think. And that's the thing. I think Conor, for him, I think it's more about his pride now rather than money. I don't think he can go out on a loss. I think he needs to get one good final run, even if it's not for championship. It doesn't have to be for that. I don't think he deserves that. But fight some good people, fight some lower end people, build yourself back up, and then end your career fighting Diaz or Dustin. Do that, you know, in a couple of years. Finish your career off well. But let's see what happens.
I think this is where it dwells into almost WWE terms in the sense of trying to build a character and make it believable again, because the rankings are there for a reason, but you know that there's this overwhelming sense of, well, he brings the money,
Yeah.
you know, so you go, well, Conor could be on a 10-fight losing streak and he'd still be main event because he just brings in the most money because people watch him, sort of thing, which is the sense is where you go, well, you can't fix the fights 100%, because I'm not a believer that any fight's fixed and all this kind. I think people are fucking stupid.
Certainly not.
Anyway,
Certainly
no.
not. It was fixed. Conor would win everything. There's no way Dana would fix it and have Conor lose. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it just doesn't make sense. But say, so you get that, and then you got this thing of, well, we need to build him up before he gets this fight, so we're going to feed him a couple of people. You go, well, what if these people knock him out?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Then you've just ruined it. It's believing in the character, if you will, of, you know. But anyway, I feel like we could talk about that rivalry for quite a while, or Conor in general. So we'll move on to the next one. What do you think is the best knockout? I was actually tied between two.
Yeah. I think for me, it's really hard because there's been some really good ones this year. But I think the best one is Usman versus Masvidal 2. I think
That was good.
I think it was just such a clinical knockout. I think because we obviously talk all the time while we're watching UFC, like we message each other, don't we, all the time? And I remember saying to you, I said, "Oh, Usman needs to be careful getting striking with Masvidal. He's going to get caught." And the complete opposite happened. The second I said that, Usman knocked Masvidal clear out, and it shocked me. It literally shocked me because we knew Usman was practicing his striking. He was getting better at it, but I didn't expect him to be at that level because the first time they fought, he just hugged him up against the fence and stomped on his foot for 5 rounds. You know, that's all he did, 5 rounds. Whereas this time, he really pieced Masvidal up. He showed actually that Masvidal's not quite the fighter we thought he was, you know, because if you look, he's actually got a really bad record. But I think, you know, you sort of get this idea in your head because Masvidal got the one knockout over Ben Askren that really, you know, and he pieced up Diaz. So we build up Masvidal as though he's this very similar in the way Conor McGregor is, you know, like we think, you know, well, maybe not you, obviously, but like we think of these fighters as like they're amazing, they're the best fighters ever, but they're not, and they're shown that they're not. And I think Usman really showed Masvidal's not
I
that.
think the sense with that was a great, like, really good knockout. That I was really happy with that as well. But in the sense, this is not taking anything away from Masvidal because I really like him. I am a fan. I think he's good to have in the division. He's a brawler,
100%.
so good. And but I mean, say like one of my friends back home, he in the first Usman and Masvidal fight, he said, "I've put £100, £100 on Masvidal by knockout." And I said, "Do you know who Usman is? Who he's fighting?" He's like, "Well, I haven't really seen much of him." I'm like, "Do you mean the champion? You haven't seen much of him?" I'm like, he ain't going to just stand there and let that happen.
No.
And, you know, the complete opposite happened. There was no knockout. The first one, it was a little bit lackluster, but it was 6 days notice and all this kind of thing. You know what I mean? But I was like, he had a really good 2019, did Masvidal. He had Darren Till, Ben Askren, and Nate Diaz. And, you know, decisively won them up. So you're like, he was sort of put on this pedestal, and it was after the Diaz fight that he came in for the Usman fight on 6 days notice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, coming off that, he's got all this equity built up of them 3 knockouts, and, you know, the fastest ever knockout and piecing up Nate Diaz and all that. So people expected so much, and then obviously he just kept away. But the second fight that we're actually talking about, I actually thought Usman was going to go for a finish.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to try and finish him to make this right. This is decisive now. It's done. And it wasn't. I remember I watched it in a pub, and one of the people there, they had an exchange, and Masvidal pulled away and he started smiling. And one of the people there said, "I don't know what he's smiling about because he just got hit then." And literally, it wasn't even long. If you go back and watch the fight, watch where he gets knocked out. It's like 20 seconds prior to that. Somebody's smiling at him.
Yeah.
And then he gets clipped, and it was a clean punch. So precise. The follow-up shots just made him, like, you know, he was limp.
100%.
So I thought it was a great knockout, good choice as well. My knockouts, I was torn between 2, but the first one was what we spoke about earlier, Rose and Zhang Weili, because it was just so unexpected. First round, bounced around, so quick. she was protesting it, but she was definitely out because she couldn't even stand up. Or I had Oliveira and Chandler, which is, I wouldn't say the best knockout. And I know it's contradicting because I'm choosing it for the best knockout, but I just mean because of the fight itself and stuff.
Yeah.
Because there was the Rose and Zhang, we've already spoke about that in brief, so I'll just go straight on to Oliveira. Because this was, 15, 20 seconds into the second round that it happened? The first round was so good, and this was for the vacant lightweight belt, and it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And it was just how decisive it... Because you watch Oliveira, most of his fights, he gets clipped.
Yeah.
Aside from the Tony Ferguson fight, but you know what I mean. And he just caught Chandler. I wasn't expecting that, to be fair. After the first round, I was expecting it to be a slug out war, but it was, I just thought it was perfect. I would clipped him because he was running away, hit him, and he sort of fell down, and then he just finished him off, and that was it. We got a new lightweight champion.
And it's really exciting, wasn't it? You just sort of didn't expect it because, Chandler came out in the first round, knocked him down, and I thought, oh, maybe Chandler's got this done, and then Oliveira got him by the back. He was going to submit him, and Charles out. I was like, oh, Charles has got this done. He's got this in the bag. He's too strong for him. He can't get submitted by him. Not that, of course, if someone breaks out of submission, that's it. But you could tell Chandler was too physically strong, and his takedown defense was good enough for him to know that he couldn't be stopped in that way. And then all of a sudden, he just got dropped and just went down like a sack of spuds. And it really exciting match. And I think it's a good choice to knock out.
Yeah. Next, Dwain, I'll ask you, what do you think was the worst women's fight of the year?
For me, it was Miesha Tate versus Vieira. Is that her name? I thought
that was quite recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really recent. It was the week after Max Holloway, and I feel bad because maybe it wasn't the worst women's fight, but I think we had such an exciting 3 cards before. We had 267, 268, Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez, and then this. And come on, how can that be our main event after such great cards? And overall, it was quite boring because Miesha Tate's a good fight. She used to be quite exciting, but she came out, nothing much happened. They sort of just held each other, a couple of swings at each other, and that was it. I genuinely was very bored. I wasn't interested in watching it. So yeah, for me, that's why it's the worst fight.
Well, this is where we'll get the people saying, "You filthy casual." you don't know a technical fight.
I mean? Casual.
Well, the thing is, people will argue with this to you, but in the sense that they expect you to remember 700 or 800 people's names and stuff. And do these people sit at home and set themselves little revision tests to remember every single thing that's happened on a UFC card? Like, we've got lives and stuff, It just makes you laugh. I don't know, but because you've called a fight, but there'll be people out there that are, arguing that Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou was a great fight,
a technical masterclass.
Yeah, it's a great chess match. There's people that can't just sit and take things at face value. They've got to be 100% involved in it, and I don't know. These people sound like
definitely. I
think
the
most boring people I've never heard of.
Yeah, the whole casual argument's just unnecessary, isn't it? Because we watch every UFC fight for the most part, we watch all the fight nights and things, but it's even that, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot out of me, I'm like, oh, I've got to stay up, got to watch all this. And a lot of people would consider us casual because we don't watch Bellator or One Championship or anything like that, because I don't have time. There's too much fighting.
Well, that's the thing. That's my argument. Someone said, "Oh, do you watch so and so Bellator?" And I'm like, "Well, no, because I watched that. I watched the post-fight press conferences and all that kind of stuff for UFC. It'd take over. I can't do it." But this is a separate subject. We'll talk about casuals in the next one.
Yeah, in another time.
Okay, so my worst women's fight was, if you remember, Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont. Now, it's the one, you'll have seen the video.
I'm too casual to remember it, Mark. Sorry.
You'll have seen the video of the cornerman taking Aspen Lad to the corner, and there was, I won't say controversy because there'll have been about 4 people that complained, and then people have made an article about it because the cornerman was saying, like, they were basically grilling her, saying, "What are you doing? You're better than this. What are you doing?" That was it, and it was just Norma pinned Aspen Lad to the fence for 5 rounds and just sort of kept it there, and it became just stale, very stale, like very quick, and it was one of them. Have you ever been watching a fight and you can get like maybe into the early 3rd round maybe, and you're like, this is just going to go to decision. I'll bet my house that this is going to go to decision. You get them fights, and it did, and that was the main event as well. So it seems a bit lackluster because you can't expect a knockout. You can't expect devastating power in every single card, but
you expect a bit of variety. But
yeah, it's just part and parcel of it because it is such a real sport. Things like that do happen, and you've got to. And it's not like me complaining. This is just for the sake of the recap. We're talking about the worst.
Yeah, of course, and like with the Misha Tate fight, and I'm sure it's the same with this one because this year has been such an exciting card.
Yeah.
These fight night main events, they really stand out as poor because they've got a lot of competition, Just the way, unfortunately.
So that brings us on to the worst men fight, the worst male fight. What did you think?
I think for me, the worst fight this year, male fight this year, was probably Bilal versus Edwards. Because one, I wasn't overly excited for it. I think I'm not a massive fan of Edwards, but I feel like I should be, because I'm British, like, should we get behind Edwards? But I'm not a massive fan of him. I think he's a bit boring, he's a bit weird. His promos are good. Yeah, well, it's a bit strange, his promos are a bit cringy, like, ugh, what are you saying? He's just not very good. But he is a good fighter, though. I'll give him that. He's very well rounded. He's a good striker. He's got good ground game. He's very good. He's very much a good modern UFC fighter. But this is and then Belal came out and he was getting pieced up to Ferry. Edwards was doing him in. But with that eye poke, it just ruined the whole fight. It just ruined the whole card. It was like, and it was horrible as well.
Was that the main event?
Yeah, it was the main event.
Yeah, things like that, freak accidents, they can leave a bitter taste. I know that it's worse for them obviously going through it, but just as a family at home.
Yeah, you sat going to watch that fight and Ballas got his eye nearly blinded.
Yeah, well, you don't watch that fight and go, do you remember that leg kick in first round? No, I don't. I remember the vicious eye poke where he was fucking crying blood.
Oh, it was horrible. Like when he was screaming on the floor and he's like...
Yeah, you really felt for him there because you almost felt like he was screaming because he thought, that's not just my career over, I can't see anymore.
Yeah.
And that I'll probably level with you on that. I'll go with that one as well for them exact purposes because you got to remember it's real scary. Like seeing that because you could potentially be blind forever. But eye pokes, I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I think they should really watch, because they seem to be happening quite regular.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could police them a little bit more because accidents happen. You watch DC. He comes out after him like a zombie, though, doesn't he? He just used to come after him like that, and then he'd be shocked when he's poked someone in the eye. But
him and Stipe both blinded each other in separate fights.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. But I don't know what the answer is for that. But
a lot of people talk about the gloves, don't they? But I don't know enough about it really. Like, the gloves don't curve down enough. I don't know.
It depends. I'm really not so sure, but I don't have the answers, but I'd like to see less eye pokes. I think everyone would, including Uncle Dana. But okay, so what would you say is the worst injury this year?
By far, it has to be Chris Weidman's leg snap. I mean, that was disgusting. My legs hurting thinking about it. I just felt a pulse up my leg. I was like, oh, and it just seemed
right to the fight as well.
Oh no, it was horrible. It's so funny, isn't it? Like he was involved in the one before with Silver, like 2 of the biggest ever leg breaks, and he's involved in both. And it was gory. His leg looked like jelly, and he just fell back. Oh, yeah. He sort of slid back, and Uriah Hall, he looked so shocked. He looked like he was in more pain than Weidman. He looked terrified. Yeah, that's easy.
It was real painful to watch. I couldn't stand it. I think just me personally, I'm more squeamish the older I get. I can watch people getting punched in the head. I can watch blood, all that kind of stuff. But a leg snapping or an arm going the other way, no, I can't watch it.
Because that's your whole life, isn't it? If you can't walk around, it's horrible. Yeah. He looked like he was in so much agony, and I hope he recovers soon. Because I think he was at 269, wasn't he? Walking, not fighting, obviously.
Well, yeah. Well, he was walking around, but you think as well, because Chris Weidman's he'll be like 36, so he's not exactly a young pup. So the older that you are, I guess that it's gonna take a bit more time. And obviously, if that's 2 years, that's 2 years off his career, and he's close to time. So careers are short enough as it is.
Yeah, what we need now is Conor McGregor versus Weidman with their titanium legs just kicking each other. See who gives up first.
Terminator 3 Battle of the Machine. He's more machine than man. Darth Vader. But okay, then I'd say I'm trying to remember. I'm not looking back at the end of 2021. I'm trying to remember how I felt at the time watching things.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm going for my worst injury is Paul Craig versus Jamal Hill.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and watch that, Dwayne, he has him in a triangle. I thought his arm had snapped, but believe it or not, in the post-fight press conference, Dana White came out and he said, it turns out, believe it or not, it was just dislocated. But you go back and watch it, he got him in an arm bar, and that's where I'm already wincing. And then when he had him in the triangle and his arm is going up and down like a fucking Stretch Armstrong rubber or something like that, and he's elbowing him in the head and his arm is just fucking bouncing like a Churchill dog's head.
Why did the ref not stop it?
I think he just wanted to witness an actual murder. I don't know. But it was just, you watch it back and you're like, this is fucking disgusting. And then at the end, just to rub salt in wound, when they raised Paul Craig's arm, they had Jamal come over and ref had to grab one of his arms and his other arm were just dangling down.
Why did they make him do that? Why did they send him straight off his stomach?
He just sat there like a fucking broken toy from Toy Story.
Yeah, but
it was just stupid.
Yeah, the ref picked up one arm and he went, oh, and he had to drop it so he could hold his arm. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Apparently, Dana had said that after they just popped it back into place and he was fine again. Because he's fought since, hasn't he? He beat Jimmy Crute. But you go like, well, I'm just remembering at the time watching that because you're going, what the fuck? Is this ref just having a cigarette or something? What the fuck's he doing? But, that's my worst injury, I'd say, which sort of tied in a way. What would you say is the biggest scare of the year, if you have one?
Yeah, for me, my biggest scare this year is Volkanovski versus Ortega, because I'm a big Volk fan, and when Ortega got him down in that guillotine, was it a guillotine triangle?
Yeah,
choke. Yeah, he's a choke.
He jumped on him, didn't he?
Jumped on him. I'm very much a casual. I forgot the exact hold it was. Please forgive me.
You're not allowed to be a UFC fan if you can't remember every single hold, can't remember every single detail. What colour shorts were Ortega wearing that night? You're not allowed to be a UFC fan.
Yeah, I know. And when he had him in the choke and Volk, you could literally hear him gargling, and I thought, he's going to tap here. He's lost. Oh, no. But he just popped out, like a little mole, just head straight out.
Like a Diglett.
Yeah.
What's that?
I couldn't believe it. That was my biggest scare because I love Volk, and I don't want to see Holloway versus Ortega for the belt. I want to see Volk versus Holloway 3. That. So that's my biggest scare.
That was a good one because then he got the triangle attempt as well later on in that same round.
Yeah.
So I mean, I remember watching that, and I was, because I'm a Volkanovski fan as well, and I don't know why he gets as much hate as what it does. I think it's because it's these Max fanboys. I'm a big fan of Max Holloway. By the way.
I am as well.
It's these people, they can't stand it that he took his belt and they beat him in the rematch, because a lot of people still think that Max won, which, fair enough, they're entitled. I think some disagreement went the other way, but
yeah, there were close fights, but I remember I messaged you, didn't I, when we were watching it? I mean, I don't know why I'm telling everyone our little personal private messages. But like, you know, I said, I think Volk's got it done because he makes those slight adjustments in the fight. You know, he makes figures out what he's doing and he gets it done. You know, so for me, that's what he did. He figured out what he needed to do and he finished Max off. Well, he didn't finish him off, but he got the decision. You know.
Yep, I understand. I know what you mean. Sorry, I was just getting the wire away.
That's all right.
I understand what you mean. I thought, I was pretty on the edge of my seat there as well, just for Volk's sake. My biggest scare, if you remember this, is Edson Barbossa versus Shane Burgos.
Oh yeah,
Remember the knockout?
It's scary.
It's just because of what happened, because it was such a delayed reaction to getting punched in the face, because he stood there with his guard up for a good 4 or 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden he just started falling backwards and fell into the cage. And I think even in the post-fight press conference, I'm pretty sure, you know, John Morgan being first, I'm pretty sure that was the first question that he'd asked.
Yeah.
Is, you know, how was Shane doing? He's like, yeah, he's fine. And obviously he's fought since as well.
Yeah,
so it was fine. But at the time you watch and you go, there's something seriously wrong there. That just looked a bit creepy, a bit harsh.
Wasn't it? Because he got hit, didn't he, by Barbossa, stepped back, put his guard up, and then just slowly walked back and fell down. It's like, it was really, really delayed.
I was rebounded off the cage as well. You're like, Jesus, like that's coming with some force.
Barbossa just starts pinging him while he's on the floor. Like, why did the ref stop it quicker than that?
So I got two more categories for you, but I'll start with, what do you think is the worst pay-per-view? Because then we'll do the best one after and we'll end on a high note. What do you think would be the worst pay-per-view? By the way, this is not taking anything away from anyone. It's just, as a casual fan, what you thought was the least engaging pay-per-view.
For me, it was probably 268, I think. You know, we had
268. That was Usman and Colby.
Not 268. Sorry, 265. 265. Imagine I said 268 was the worst pay-per-view of the year.
After 2 of your favourite fights were on that card.
Yeah, it's the worst pay-per-view of the year. 265. Sorry, not 268. With Garn versus Derek Lewis.
I remember that. Yep.
And it's not. It felt like a fight night. It didn't feel like a pay-per-view. You know, it was perfectly fine. But I felt like the bout wasn't that good. They sort of just moved around each other a bit. Garn felt very afraid of Lewis's, right hand, as he should be. But it just for me, it just didn't live up to anything. It wasn't overall exciting,
Yeah, I mean, there was the Aldo and Pedro Munoz fight on there as well. I'm just having a look now at what else was on there. I mean, I'm not taking anything away because, I mean, just to watch that, I didn't think it was all that great as well. But I do remember Vicente Luque getting Michael Chiesa in a submission, which you never thought would happen.
Oh, yeah, that was quite good.
But, I mean, this is the thing. It's not, I don't think it's a slam as in absolutely terrible pay-per-view. It's the worst of a great bunch is what we're talking about.
100%, yeah, because that's the thing. It's not a bad card. I am exactly, because, Garn versus Lewis is still a good fight. It's still exciting. It's still interesting. But we've had such an exciting year of pay-per-views this year. For me, that's the worst pay-per-view.
That's one thing I will say is UFC, it's great for fans. We get spoiled almost weekly now. Yeah. Now there's a fight almost weekly. We get completely spoiled, and people forget how excited they are for when certain cards are announced. The beginning of this year, with the Dustin and Connor, there was supposed to be Ngannou and Stipe, all that kind of stuff happening. You sat and you're like, these are like super fights constantly that we're getting. Yeah. So I mean, if it's 100%, like, it's not a dig. It's just what we think out of the bunch.
100%.
But I can level with you on that one. 265 wasn't compared to other ones, should I say anyway? But I'll say, if you remember UFC 258, which was back in February, it was Camaro Usman versus Gilbert Burns.
Yeah.
Now, The main event was good because I found it interesting, because they were teammates and all this kind of stuff, and they were.
And didn't Burns drop Usman, didn't he, in the first round?
He did, yeah. So it was shocking at the very start,
But one good fight doesn't
remember
make a good card.
it always. Sorry.
One good fight does not make a good card, does it necessarily?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't live up to the rest of the hype as well, because like you've got Camaro Usman, and then you have Macy Barber versus Alexa Grasso. You've got Kelvin Gastelum, which I remember that because I thought Kelvin, that was him back on the rise again because they got the decision win, and then he's lost since then as well, but to Whitaker. So again, losing to killers isn't a bad thing necessarily.
100%.
But I just mean in general, the card was a little bit lackluster. The main event was good because it had the storyline, but it does kind of feel sometimes when they've got a main event, the rest of the card can feel lackluster. It depends honestly, because you look at the card that we've just had. It was from the early prelims. There was someone I wanted to watch.
Yeah,
we'll get into that. We'll get into that after. But sometimes these fights, the cards where they've got such a great main event, but the rest of the card is like an early prelims of a fight night.
Yeah.
But this is not taking anything away. I can't nail that point home hard enough that it's just out of the rest of the card. But like we said, counter to that, best pay-per-view, I'll just say I think 269, and it's not just because it's stuck in my head because it was on last week. Compare it to everything else. You had on the early prelims. There were a couple of people that I wanted to watch. You had on the prelims still. You had Dominic Cruz versus Pedro Munoz. You got Tai Tuivasa versus Augusto Sakai. These fights, they were great. There was even Josh Emmett.
Yeah.
That was a great fight. You had, and then bringing us into the main card, you had Sean O'Malley fighting. You had Kai Kara France, Santiago Ponzinibbio. The biggest shock of the year, I wouldn't call it a scare. The biggest shock of the year is Juliana Pena beating Amanda Nunes, the GOAT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It didn't happen. And Dustin and Charles, you had the story of Dustin coming up, wanting the belt. This is his second chance. And obviously it's heartbroken for him. It's Charles wanted to prove that he's got it all, and he's actually elite level. They didn't just get lucky with Chandler. I thought that card had it all. I thought it was great. From start to finish, you could sit there and it was just entertaining through and through. Great card.
Yeah, 100%. Like the prelims, they could have been a good fight night on their own. They could have been a good pay-per-view on their own. If you'd put those prelims on and then put a title fight at the end, it could have been a good pay-per-view just by itself.
You said that to me, didn't you? You put. I'd be happy with just a title fight now, and that.
Yeah,
I
really would. It was brilliant. Such a stacked card. We did talk about this in our recap of 269, so people want to listen to that. There's more information there. But for me, even though I think 269 probably had more fights in it, a much more stacked card, but I think 268 for me is the best pay-per-view of the year because it had three of our biggest fights in our list already. And for me, just because it's very memorable fights, it had Covington versus Usman 2, Gaethje versus Chandler, Zhang Weili and Rose and Rose 2. Really exciting, really, really exciting card. And all three big fights could have gone either way. I felt like any one of them could have won those at any point. For me, it's just such an exciting card.
The unpredictability of
100%. I mean, the prelims weren't as good as exciting, but I don't think they need to be when you've got three fights like that on it.
There's something. It might just be where I'm at, but because obviously where I watch it is during the day, so it's perfect for that. But there's something about when there's a card that you're really looking forward to, and you wake up that day. You feel like, all right, this is what I'm doing today. If someone was to ask you, what are you doing this weekend? And you're like, it's 268.
Yeah.
I'm watching that. That's what I'm doing. And there's no better feeling than, if you want a couple of beers, you sit there with a couple of beers, takeaway, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And you just sat with your mates and you just sat watching it. Whether it's just, I don't know. I just find it so sort of comforting, if you will.
Yeah, 100%.
it's with how spoilt we are. It's not just little good fights throughout the year. It's almost weekly that you get great fights. There's been other good cards as well. I mean, I know the fight itself wasn't 100% great, but you watch and just a fight night. You get Johnny Walker v Thiago Santos. Do you remember that? And you're like, oh, that'll be an interesting fight. Like, fuck, that's on in the middle of two great pay-per-views. You're like, fucking hellfire. It's like I'm nowhere near complaining. I can't complain about anything because I think we get spoiled.
Definitely not. And I think this year, maybe I'm sounding a bit casual, but I think it's probably been the best year for UFC ever. I think it's been such an every month there's been an exciting card or an exciting fight, even if it's on a fight night. I think we've had so much given to us this year, and I've been really excited for it because it was just like coming out of the pandemic and they could bring audiences back, and that got really exciting. It's just, I think, fantastic cards all year round.
Yeah, there's been great shouts, great knockouts, all that kind of great moments. Look at Tai Tuivasa knocking out Greg Hardy, and then he did the shoey. That's the first shoey in front of a live crowd in a while. Yeah. I think, from since pre-COVID, I'm talking anyway, because he's won since then, but obviously with the pandemic, he can't go around drinking out of someone else's shoe.
Yeah, Ty needs to be careful. He's going to get COVID doing that.
Which was funny. Everyone's amazed by a shoey, honestly. Like, they seem to ask him question after question about a shoey, and you're like, you are aware that he's a fighter as well. He don't just drink the beer out of shoes and just punches someone on occasion. You're like, honestly, the people that are like so shocked by it every single time, if they spent a little bit of time in rural Australia, I think that they'd have a fit. Honestly, it's. But that's from experience anyway. I've spent quite a bit of time in Australia in general. Okay, I thought 2021, like you said, great year, and hopefully we'll see what 2022 brings. There's going to be a video going up quite soon about what we would hope. It's not necessarily a predictions video. It's what we hope to see in 2022, whether it's rivalries or just fights in general, things that we could be interested in, people meeting each other when they're quite close to each other on the rankings. Yeah. So, that's been our 2021 UFC recap.